All right, if you could please join me for a pledge of allegiance and a moment of silence for Anna Couch, who was a previous employee who recently passed away. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Call the meeting to order for January 13th, 2026. We're going to start with board organization, election of board president.
Make time for the nomination.
Yes.
I make a nomination for Chad to be the board president.
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. All those in favor, right hand. All those opposed? All right, moving on to election of board vice president. I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion to have Tracy be the board vice president.
I will second that.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, right hand. And election of board secretary.
I will make a motion to elect Corey Krug
I will second.
as board secretary.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor, right hand.
Oh. Can't vote.
All right. Authorization of board member liaison appointments for the 2026 board president. Will ask for the motion authorizing the board president to appoint board member liaisons. The legislative liaison 2026. I'd like to appoint Todd. Todd, you good with that?
Yep.
All right. Collective bargaining liaison 2026. I'd like to appoint Kathy and Corey, if you guys are okay with that.
Yep.
And then ISBA policy liaisons for 2026, Kathy and, do you want to do it? Good. Additionally, additional appointments we need as well is Austin revitalization. If nobody else is really anxious to do that, I can do that again. And then Marco revitalization for Kathy. Any questions of the board? Can I have a motion for that?
Yep, I'll make a motion to approve.
All right, motion and a second.
Second.
All right, all those in favor, right hand. Okay, appoint board treasurer.
Yeah, I recommend that Linda Linwell serve as the board treasurer for 2026.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I will second that.
I have a motion and a second, all in favor, right hand. Appointment of board attorney.
I recommend that Nick Hirsch from Cassadack and Williams serve as the board's attorney for 2026.
I'll make a motion to approve that.
I will second.
Have a motion and a second, all in favor, right hand. And approval of signature authorizations.
Recommend that the superintendent and the treasurer be designated to sign checks, contracts, agreements, and purchase orders.
Oh, wait, yeah, I can. I'm the secretary.
I can make a motion to approve that.
I thought it was.
Okay, I have a motion and a second, all in favor, right hand. All right, designation of newspapers to advertise public notices.
I recommend that the board designate the Bluffton News Banner and the Ossian Journal as newspapers that advertise public notices.
I will make a motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Have a motion and a second, all those in favor, right hand. All right, approval of board compensation.
Okay, I recommend that the board member compensation remain at $2,000 per year and $62 per meeting attended.
I just want to make a note for the public. Recent legislation allows for us to move up to 10% of the lowest paid teacher. We are not doing that. We're going to maintain at the same level that it has been for years.
And the per meeting could have changed.
To 150.
Less than 75.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Yep, I'll second it.
Have a motion and a second, all in favor? All right. And adoption of existing bylaws and policies.
All right, I recommend that the board adopt all existing bylaws and policies.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, right hand. All right, and last recess regular, can we,
Yeah, that's what I wondered if you want to do that.
yeah, before we recess the regular board meeting, Nick, our board attorney, does need to leave for another engagement. And so we're gonna jump in the agenda to a discussion item specific to some revised board policy, or actually not even revised board policy, but new board policies on employee certification, personnel policy, rehiring personnel policy, and offboarding and policy, employee policy. Let's start first with the rehiring personnel policy.
And just to jump in, I know I told you guys in an email that Anna, Deb, and Courtney wanted to address the board and talk a little bit about that whole process. So if you guys want to go to the...
Yeah, so let's just start first with, I know, Corey, you guys started this, so maybe a little bit of background on, the policy that you guys are kind of suggesting, and I know, Corey, you kind of stepped in.
Well, this
Yeah.
came from, over the summer, a couple opportunities were to recommended to rehire previously terminated employees. So we, as a board, thought we should have a policy in place that says who, what, when, where, why should we rehire, or do we? So this is just the starting point of creating that policy for previously terminated.
All right, so that's introducing, and then I'll start with board discussion.
I don't have, the only question that I would have, and it would be of you two and HR, I guess, is, well, and Nick, I guess, is there anything on the books that currently that says, like, provides guidelines for rehiring someone that was terminated? I'm most concerned about the terminated ones. You know, if someone leaves, that's part of this as well, but I want to make sure we're covered legally.
As far as if there's a current policy on it, then I don't think there's a current policy with Norwell on it.
And then is there anything in Indiana?
No.
Is there anything we need to pay attention to Indiana law-wise?
No, this would be,
No.
this policy as drafted would be fine and consistent with Indiana law.
Okay.
Yeah.
The only thing I would say in regards to number 4, I guess I only see that as a need for for essentially number 3.3. I don't know that we want to restrict a 12-month process for anybody who voluntarily resigned or an expired contract. Are we okay if we amend it to move those eligible employees may apply to a position after the 12-month period, only for section 3.3, I guess?
So you're recommending, Chad, section 3 that only applies.
Termination for reasons other than illegal behavior or unethical or immoral conduct. So essentially, we're saying the only ones who would be subject to having to wait 12 months, not years, would be those that were essentially terminated for reasons that were not deemed illegal.
And again, it may not be contrary to Indiana law, but I think it's a situation for that one specifically that is that somebody that Norwell wants to hire.
Right.
And I think it'd be something the board would consider at that time, potentially on a case-by-case basis. This policy is more general, that allows for that discretion. Courtney and Anna may weigh in further on it, but yeah.
I guess the only thing I would ask the board is why you would need a policy for that, because my thinking would be that you just don't, like if we say, hey, we're looking to rehire so-and-so, and then you say, well, no, we're not gonna support that, then we don't bring the recommendation, or we don't do it. And if that's, if that's the case, like you already have the authority not to approve a rehire or a hire anyway.
I think it just makes it clear that you don't even have to go through the process.
Yeah.
Or you can go through the process. So like, obviously, we've had discussions with two recent, well, I think one of them actually was more than a 12-month period, the other one was less than a 12-month period. For like, we don't even have to entertain that conversation because we won't even have a conversation for at least 12 months.
Right. Yeah, so I guess, so really the policy would just be for someone terminated, because the others, we have, as you mentioned, we have teachers that have resigned or retired or whatever that immediately come right back and sub for us. Or somebody, we've had people voluntarily resign thinking they wanted to do a different occupation, and they got out there and like, man, I really miss this, and wanted to come back, and would have been within a 12-month period, and they did a good job. We're happy to have them come back. So that's the only thing I would say. You're really only talking about if someone has been terminated, that if it's within 12 years, you don't want us bringing a recommendation.
Or 12 months.
Or 12 months, I'm sorry, 12 months. We just wouldn't bring the recommendation then if that's the pleasure of the board is not for us to do that. I just think with policy, and we asked ISBA on just all these policies, and they didn't have policies for, I don't know where you guys got these, but like, they don't have policies for any of these that we're looking at tonight.
Right.
So,
The only other thing that came up, and I think why we started talking about this, is there was someone that resigned to go to another district for the same position, and then we had heard that they wanted to come back because it wasn't greener on the other side, and we wanted to be careful about people leaving, so that would be the voluntary resignation, because they did.
yeah, and I think you do have, I'd have to go back and look at the board policy, but I think there is one that you gives the board the authority. Like, as soon as someone turns in a resignation to us, like it's considered, we accept it, and then you accept it formally at a board meeting. But the board has the authority to, not like revoke that and say, again, you've got to change your heart. We're not, so I don't know. I mean,
I think this was
I think you already have
a
one.
different.
This was longer.
This was one at the beginning of the school year.
So that's
They
the
did
only
actually
other-
leave.
Yeah, that's the
Okay.
only other thing. I mean, it's rare, but I think that's why we discussed it, was because
Yeah.
someone left and wanted to come back really quickly. And it would have been problematic, I think, that quickly.
Yeah. Did you guys have any strong feelings on the rehiring part?
Sorry, is there any other from the board?
And I guess on this, Chad, just because this is like an extension of me, and this is different than like public.
I guess regarding the rehiring personnel is, one of the procedures I have is if we have a new recommendation that comes through and it is a previous employee, I'm partnering with Mike or Anna or Deb and that director or building principal, hey, this person resigned. We discuss the reasons behind the resignation, things like that, to make sure that they are gonna be a good fit to come back to work for the school. So I feel like we have procedures in place to kind of cover that. I can understand where you guys are coming from, like a termination standpoint. But again, with our background checks and things like that, if there's something that flags on a background check, we're not even gonna bring them to the board for recommendation for hire. Think of anything else
No.
regarding the rehiring?
No, since you've kind of zoned in on terminated, for cause, that makes a little more sense than just, if it was a legal employment, that we couldn't rehire them.
Those are two different things, terminate for cause and just like either non-renewed contract or, I think it does, that's one thing I worry a little bit about policy. Again, the policy, to be broad and not so specific, because it only gives you room to, that's the only thing I would say is a concern. Obviously, it's a board's role to implement policy, and whatever policy you enact will follow it. But I think that's just a concern, is
I mean,
getting too specific in the policy.
I do have concern with the voluntary resignation because we do have teachers, we have other employees that have, quote, retired or resigned. that do want to come back, but they have to actually put in a resignation and stuff for retirement reasons to collect some of their benefits. And then we can't rehire them back until the following August because they have to have so much time. And so we're missing out on having certified educators. I mean, we have Stephanie Rohr that subs in the cafeteria to give her something to do during retirement. So I think by having it this way, and again, I don't know if it necessarily needs to be a policy, but maybe just a procedure that we put into the handbook.
Yeah, I wonder if the policy shouldn't just be more focused on, well, really just be focused on the limitations of rehire versus,
The biggest issue, or the reason I just don't want to have to read through the personnel report and wonder if they, hey, we fired them 6 months ago, why are they on here? So I just want that part clean. However it's worded, it's fine.
Well, and back to your point, I think there's a big difference between terminating someone in a contract and just not renewing a contract.
Yeah.
So that's,
So I'd be fine limiting it or whatever to the termination.
Yeah.
I just don't want, I do want the policy because I don't want to have to be like, oh, well,
Yeah.
it's only waited 3 months.
Well, and looking back there too with Amy and Courtney's been doing this, like in transportation,
Right.
if someone's on our bus list, but then they haven't done the steps or whatever, like, so that they're not involved, so that they're not put in the random drug test, like, we actually have to terminate them from that. So that would be a quote unquote termination, but they really weren't, I mean, they weren't terminated because they just weren't driving for us anymore and we needed to get them off our list, so they weren't counted on the random drug pool, right?
That's correct.
So that's an example of that.
Yeah.
So again, we'll do whatever. I just think, I'm kind of with you that if we can have it in a handbook, or we can maybe start focusing on some more detailed administrative guidelines, maybe that's more what you're looking for, than policy, because policy is pretty broad, and I feel like we're getting really, too painting ourselves in the corner and stuff. But you can still have, guidelines saying we don't want a recommendation coming if they've been, terminated because of poor performance. Or
Yeah, but-
something, right?
well, but if you're you're talking about putting in an employee handbook.
No, I was talking about more, like, we can have it, so one thing I do think we need to work on here, kind of our next step as we revamped all the board policy, is get a little bit better with some of our administrative guidelines, which is the next layer. So you really have board policy, administrative guidelines, and then handbooks. And I think for a while here, even prior to me getting here, I don't think we've been real strong in the administrative guidelines piece, and I think we get stronger with that. That's really what I kind of feel like I'm hearing from the board, is more guidelines. But I may be wrong, maybe that's not what you're thinking.
Anything else in regards to, we can have Nick kind of take a look at it and we can come back and,
Yeah, I think your recommendation, focusing on termination, and that, but also that's kind of, I can circulate that.
And maybe we can, if we're really just getting down to the sentence, maybe that could just be added to another policy we already have that has to do with.
You said we didn't have any.
Well, we have policies about employees, but maybe not specifically talking about rehiring. Like, we have a hiring process.
So
But,
it could fall under
yeah, so maybe
hiring
maybe we could do that.
all right, any other questions on that policy? Any members of the public that wish to speak in regards to this policy? Moving on to employee certification personnel policy. Policy requested is to all non-certified employees hired by Norwell Community Schools, approved by the school board, shall obtain and complete any state professional training, required training, as well as any additional training recommended by the superintendent for the employment position within 12 months.
It was, I know that we hire people that don't have the requisite certifications, but understanding if they can get them or are in the process of getting them. But in our hiring papers, when we get the personnel packets, there's nothing in there that says this person doesn't have the requisite certificate. And so I think it was, so you have to tell us in board that they don't have the requisite certificate, but they're getting it, and we're gonna follow through on it. So I think the policy is good, but maybe, like you said, Mike, putting in some procedure stuff in the handbook or whatever on how that's done.
That would be for a certified position, and this policy strictly says non-certified employees. So what
I-
you're talking about is more a certified position that they might not have the
Yeah.
Which
licensing.
we added that to the hiring recommendation, it now has in there, like if it's an emergency permit, and it's also in the notes that this person has an emergency permit and they're working on the license, so that's in there
Yeah,
now.
I mean, if we have to change that, I'm fine with it being non-certified and certified.
We have some concerns regarding this as well, so I don't know who wants to go first. I just have a couple of notes first. Training's covered in our all-staff handbook. It's page 4, that all Norwell school employees are required to view the Norwell safety videos at the start of every new year or within the first 2 weeks of employment. The training videos include but are not limited to child abuse, mandated reporting, sexual misconduct, staff to student, human trafficking, bullying, recognition and response, suicide awareness and prevention, internal controls, bloodborne pathogen exposures, and then we have those under our website, which are now under Frontline
I'm not
Central.
concerned with any of those, I guess it's the, like for a special ed teacher that needs to have a certain certificate, if we hire them. That's the only thing. Like, I'm concerned about the professional licenses that are needed.
Okay, this is training though.
I know, so we can adjust the words on it, but I think that's what we need to have, because the reason this came up is I got a call from a parent that said, my teacher is not even certified to do what they're doing. They are covered because they had the emergency license. So it's to cover us so that we know that someone doesn't have it, they are going to get it.
And they have
And
12
move
months to
forward.
do so.
Yeah.
And that we're made aware of that.
Yeah, that we're made aware of it, because otherwise I get that call and I'm like, well, what the heck do we do?
I just have a question. So are you saying that do you want them to have the appropriate license within a year or just the like alternate license within 12 months? I just
Right.
wanted some clarity, I guess I'm. of
'Cause
what-
I-
Is it achievable within the year?
No, that's why I wanted to.
Yeah,
it's not
so-
achievable.
Yeah.
Right, and I will just say, just to make sure we understand, because everything in context, right, is that there's a reason why emergency permits exist
Right.
for special education, and it's a reason why it's designated by this state as a hard-to-fill position, because it is. And so we, obviously, we work really hard. We hope that when we get applicants for positions that they're fully licensed, and it even happens in some of the secondary areas where we're looking at it. So one of the things is we, and I think, Corey, this came maybe a year ago, or whatever, is making sure that that's very clear when you get a hiring recommendation, that you guys know that, I mean, I try to say that in my weekly emails to you guys, but on that hiring recommendation, it needs to say in there, this is an emergency permit that they're working on, and yes, and we have been doing that, like I think since you first brought that up, that's been done. So again, I just think, you know, in terms of policy, and again, and I'll do a second look at anything that we have to do with employees or hiring, if we can combine those things together. Because I think this can get very confusing, which it did for those guys when you saw training with it, because even to say obtain all state required certification, well, emergency permit is approved by the state, or we wouldn't be doing it, right? So, yeah, I think it can lead to more questions, which is not what you want from policy, right? You want policy to bring clarity.
And with this, and I'll have to say to them, and when I first got it, sorry if I'm not loud enough, I spent like 3 or 4 hours looking at this going, the first 38 words were great. And I'm like, we have this mandatory training, I don't even want a staff member to look at one of our students until they have the training, and it said training, so I know we were pretty concerned about, whoa, wait, they don't need, you know, the training that we were talking about,
And we
which
feel like
is
2
not.
weeks is generous, don't we?
Pardon?
We feel like 2 weeks is generous.
Yes, yeah, and we do give them 2 weeks, and we were even talking about, upping it before we even start, we thought, oh no, we need to have them trained on some of the things. We were talking about the mandatory training, not the certification for teachers, you know, with like, you know, sexual harassment and bloodborne pathogens and all that, and I was like, whoa, 12 months? They could go a whole year with our students and not be trained, and that's not right. So that's, and I looked at this and I glanced at the first 38 words in it, I'm like, yeah, that's fine. And then the next 5 words were within 12 months, and I'm like,
Yeah,
I'm thinking
that's
12
not what
hours.
I'm
Needs to be,
concerned with.
Yeah, I think-
the word needs to be changed to,
Certification and licensing.
okay.
Yeah.
thank you. That
What would
was,
that look like for non-certified, certification and licensing?
Well, and is it really just certified
It
employees?
is.
It sounds like it really is
And
just certified.
I mean, unless the only one are all cafeteria employees.
everybody that,
No, like, do they need special like?
I mean, some of our maintenance needs special OSHA training and stuff,
Yeah.
and so I would rather them not get a whole, I mean, I don't know how Adam feels, but a whole year to get whatever certification might put us into jeopardy for some things. And I know cafeteria has the safe serve and things
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
I think it's more of a procedural thing and maybe not necessarily need to be a policy.
Yeah, I'm more concerned about the licensures and certifications for the certified staff, because that's the one that we'll get the call on.
Yeah, and again, I think going back, maybe trying to figure out the best placement to, again, I think it goes back to just making sure that we know when we're doing the approval process. I know it's there, but like putting it in writing to know that it always has to stay there.
Is that something that you would like us to go back and, again, look at other policies and work on, and bring something to you for discussion the next time?
Yeah, that's,
And give us some time to work on this?
yeah, if you want to work with Nick, just to, whether or not we need to change this one or modify it into another one.
And Kathy and Tracy, I think, are on the policy.
Yeah.
committee, and so that's, I think these stem from, there were several considerations by the board back, I think, in the summer of last year.
Yeah.
Yep.
So maybe the 4 of us can get together and kind of do something that we can contact you and Tracy and more.
Any members of the public that want to step up to the podium? All right. The last policy for discussion is offboarding employee policy. An exit interview form should be completed by Norwell Community Schools employees following all separations from employment to help the school board administration gather information to identify 1, patterns of employment, 2, improvements to consider within the school district, and 3, comparative analysis with compensation benefits for employees compared to other Indiana school districts. These forms should be provided by the human resource coordinator with biannual reporting of information provided of the school board. Employees should also be encouraged to take part in the interview. I'm going to start to just, rather than reading the entire thing, and any information obtained from the interview or exit interview may be retained by Norwell to support the school district's evaluation of offboarding employees. I think this one's pretty much just pretty self-explanatory, just setting a policy so you are aware of what the board wants to see in regards to, it's what you're doing, but just putting it in policy.
I guess my question for this one is, what's the concern with the current procedure that we have with our offboarding process that the board has?
Not a concern, just making sure that, whoever's in your role understands that this is what the board expects in the biannual reporting process. So again, just putting a policy so that it continues to happen regardless of who's in that position. Unless the board has any other.
Yeah. But your concern is, Courtney, it changes your practice that you have now, right?
That, I mean, my overall concern is that you guys had concerns regarding some of our personnel procedures, I guess I would say. And, I mean, Mike wasn't included to get the right people involved so we could have these discussions outside of a board meeting. That's my biggest concern. I was pretty disappointed being the HR coordinator for the last 2 years that there wasn't a discussion before tonight regarding any of these procedures.
One, I didn't really understand what you said, but the point of these meetings is the public,
Right.
and this is just discussion, so.
And I'll be honest with you, until the board packet went out, I didn't see them either. So so the only ones who actually saw these were Nick and the policy committee.
Okay.
And
I
if
mean,
it's
'cause
just
I know
for
when we work on
discussion.
policies, like
Right.
even what the facility ones is, there was concerns Mike brought in all the right people to work on it, and then we brought it to the board for that first discussion, where we had already partnered with people and brought in insight and things like that, so I guess that's my concern.
Because this does change how we're doing it
How
now.
does
How
this,
does it
yeah,
change?
how does it change?
How
Because
does-
I think you are doing, like, it's,
Yeah, what changes for you?
Yeah.
Well,
Yes.
the exit interview form changes first off. There was an attached exit interview form, And I feel like it's not gathering the data that we actually need, looking at, having them rate us for our benefits and compensation.
So that's a good point, and one that I'm happy to look at. If you have suggestions, making those changes and showing them to us, because I wouldn't know a good one if I looked at it. I can look at a bad one.
Just by reading it, it looks like, do I still sit down with them and complete the exit interview form with them? Do we email it to them? Because we try to not make it a complaint session. We want to gather data that's going to help us grow as a school district. And that's why I partner with certified positions with Mike or Anna or Deb, especially those certified teachers. I'm not in the building with them. If there were concerns from their building principals, Mike and Anna are going to be involved in that process. And as I'm going through questions, they're going to be able to fine tune and kind of help pull where those things are going to come from to kind of really get the answer out of them. So for them to do an exit interview with Mike and Anna and it be completely separate of what we're wanting to go is also a concern for me because.
So you want to add in there with the HR coordinator?
Well, I guess my question is am I doing the exit interview like I've been doing?
Yes.
Is it an email form?
No, I think that the intention is that you do them as you have been doing them and that you provide a report to the board biannually.
Okay.
Yeah. And if the second page of the document where it has the interview form needs to change to reflect what you're actually doing, if you can just send that to Nick so that questionnaire that you actually use is what's
We
attached
can put
instead.
that in place of,
I've
that
never
was just
seen
a
an
generic.
actual exit interview
Yeah.
to be able to reference, from this.
Yeah.
So, we just want to make sure if you are not here, the person after you is following the same process.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you guys saying that just on her behalf, 'cause I don't know if she's gonna say this, but Courtney has worked really
know,
hard.
And we
yeah,
And I know you guys.
recognize
Oh, no, we definitely recognize
Right, and
that.
so.
We
so-
just want to make sure
yeah.
that it keeps going the way that you're doing it.
And that
I mean, that's
form,
been
yeah.
a huge thing since,
Yes.
I came into position over the last 3 years. We've really been trying to make substantial improvements to how we onboard and offboard employees. Pulling in, the 4 of us, pulling in building administrators, to make sure that we're actually doing stuff. And, by going to the IASBO stuff, we're really ahead of the pack, and I really want to emphasize that again. I know I've made that in comments before, like, how many people reached out to me because they don't even do offboarding meetings? How did you even start? They were shocked that at the end of the year that's what we do the last 2 days of school is anybody that's resigning, like, that's pretty much what we do, or offboarding meetings, because it is important to us to get that information
Yeah.
to improve.
And we just want to make sure it continues.
Yeah.
That It is a good process, and like I said, that was like, I guess, a generic form, so just send us what you
Yeah.
do,
Yes,
and then it can be replaced for
Yeah,
that
it-
form at the end.
Obviously, if someone's pleased with their compensation and benefits, it's not direct on the form, it's more of a general form, as Tracy indicated. And in a lot of, again, this policy stemmed from, I think, survey results that the board looked at and evaluated back last year. We're trying to develop policy and hopefully get more feedback and information, but, yeah, I think incorporating what you have that has more specific information that helps you with that data, I think that'd be great.
Yeah, and I think, there wasn't a policy specific to this. We like what you're doing and we want to make sure that that stays. And so we want to put it in policy so that it does stay. And so, no, we appreciate what you're doing and we just want to make sure whether you're in this role or whoever gets, you're the lucky job after you leave this role when you retire, that it just continues. Thank you.
And I do like what we have on our policy right now, and I'm kind of a little bit of a math person because when Courtney did this, we have a rating scale. So it says from 1 to 5, so you can kind of start gathering some information mathematically, and if you have an average of 4.5, you're like, okay, that's okay. If you have an average of 1.2, not so good. We probably need to take a look at that. So that's something as well that with what she had, before, it was pretty good to kind of take a look at some of those numbers as along with the comments, because the comments are powerful.
Mhm.
So in hearing all of this, I just want to wrap, are you good, like Tracy and Kathy, I think I did Tracy and Kathy just now, but anyway, with us going through with, as a team and Courtney looking at all this and trying to, everything that they heard from you guys, putting that together, sending you something, saying, is this what you're wanting to accomplish?
Yeah, with
Before we
Nick
get back the next
on
time,
there,
with, yeah,
too.
include
Yeah.
Nick, I meant to say that, include Nick too. The next time we get together and see if we're close to kind of what the spirit of what you're trying to do is.
Yeah, and
Okay.
like, this is just discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah,
think we
it-
learned a lot from the discussion, which is good.
And I think, you know, the thing is that these may or may not come back for action.
Yeah,
And they may come back again for further discussion, so.
And they may come back as procedures
as,
and.
Right.
And they may come back as a
as an addendum
procedural.
to the
Right, which I do
handbook.
think
It
is
just
important.
starts here and then we filter it out.
Yep. Any members of the public wishing to speak to this specific policy that want to come to the podium? All right. I think that covers the majority of discussion items, so thanks,
you.
Nick. And now we are going to recess the regular meeting and move to the Board of Finance meeting. Do we need a motion to recess?
Probably, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, let's
I'll make motion.
I'll second.
have a motion and a second to recess. All right, moving to the annual Board of Finance meeting, election of Board Finance President and Secretary. I think in the past, they've always been the same,
Sorry.
correct?
Mike, I'm trying to figure out, I'm trying to remember how I make this so I can see the whole screen. Sorry, I got distracted. So I'll just recommend that the board president serve as the Board of Finance president and the board secretary serve as the Board of Finance secretary.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, right hand.
I just recommend that the board designate the First Bank of Burn to continue as the district's public depository.
I'll make motion to approve.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, right hand.
All right, Deb, I'm going to ask you to come up on this, if you don't mind. I just recommend, and maybe it's not necessary, but just to make sure people understand and you understand as a board, but recommend that the board approve notice to bidders for temporary loans up to $2 million. And so I just want Deb to talk about that a little bit, because it doesn't mean that when we haven't done it, like, the board's approved this, I don't know how many years in a row, and we've yet to take out this loan.
Yeah,
but-
every year, these three resolutions, we ask for approval every single year. The notice to bidders for temporary loans is just to safeguard our funding, just in case. What if the state doesn't make the basic grant distribution in a month? Or what if the county doesn't make the property tax distribution on time? We gotta make payroll. This is just in case, and we've never used it.
Never used it, but this is just notice for bidders to bid on what their rate would be for that month.
I'll make motion to approve. Or wait, is this discussion? No, motion to approve, yeah.
I have a motion and a second. Any questions or discussion of the board? All right. All those in favor, right hand. All right.
Next one is a resolution, transfer appropriations. And again, want Deb just to talk about, we'd like the board to approve that, but just have her talk about that process.
Yeah, this is just to ask permission in case we need to transfer budget classifications from one within the same fund and occasionally maybe between funds, which is very rare, but this is another just-in-case situation. We have to abide by the 2026 ELGF approved budget. We can never exceed that, so we would still be within those parameters.
But this gives us the flexibility that we don't have to come back every time we need to do something like that.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Have a motion and a second. Any questions or discussion? All right. All those in favor, right hand.
Okay, then we have the resolution to authorize payment of indebtedness. And really this is, well, go ahead, Deb. This is an easier one.
Authorization of payment of indebtedness or payments due. There's situations before the board meeting, we have statements, bank card statements or utilities or lease payments that have to be made before we incur a service charge or interest, which we're not allowed to pay by State Board of Accounts. So, and you still see the expenditure in your accounts accounts payable docket to approve at the next board meeting. So you're still seeing it, it may just be delayed.
And with 2 board meetings, it's pretty rare,
Yeah,
but
and
just in
especially the
case.
one board meeting,
Yeah.
when there was only one board meeting in March and December, that makes it a
Yeah,
long
yeah.
gap between payments.
Yep.
And the utility companies do want their pay on time.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, I have a motion for approval
I'll second.
and a second. Any questions or discussion? All those in favor, right hand. All right. Annual fiscal financial report.
And Byron, I apologize here, but I always forget what I need to do to make it so we can see it, the whole screen. F11, there we go. Thank you, Byron.
I'm gonna take your function button.
Function button, 11. Where's 11? On the laptop?
He doesn't have one.
I don't have 11. All right, forget it. There we go. That was really difficult. Thank you. All right. Good thing we're talking about finance and not technology here. Okay, so just going through the agenda, that's what we're going to be talking about here in the report. We do have David Spear here when we get to that point. If you have questions about property and casualty insurance premiums, it's a rough world out there right now, but David's kind of works with us on that and can walk us through that. You can see the other items there. So property and casualty, pretty big jump, and you can see with our property value in terms of replacement costs, how much that's gone up. So you go to, to 2024 is 26.7 million, then to 2025 another 12.6 million, to this last year a jump of 51.4 million. And so that's where you get into AVs going up and all that kind of stuff, and we're watching property tax, and I get it, all that, but just understand that we also feel that as well on our end, and those expenditures are going up, and we may not have that revenue to support that. So you can see the rest, kind of where we're at. Everything else is, relatively stable. I mean, workman's comp is kind of an ebb and flow. We've just had a couple of issues that kind of spiked that, but so any questions on that piece of it, or any questions for David if you want him to come up to the podium?
I know you emailed me and asked about the modifying our
Oh, the deductible?
deductible.
Yeah, do you want to talk about that, David? I mean, so it basically, if you want to come up, I sent you guys also in your packet or an email, like, what that difference would be. And it's just whether, so it looks like basically, I think it's, right now we have a $10,000 deductible for property damage. If it goes up to 25, we're looking at probably an $18,000 difference in our premiums.
18,521.
There you go. And so is it worth that, right? To not, because maybe you pay up to 25,000, but you didn't pay 18,000 in premium, right off the bat that you were gonna pay.
What's the history?
Yeah.
Do you have any of the history in regards to, like, over the last maybe 3 years, what have we paid?
In terms of claims?
Yeah.
And
Like,
David,
have
I
we
wanted to
hit
say-
the deductible on many
Well,
of them?
I have, so basically what we're looking at is we're looking at claims paid, I got it, there, that's better. Claims paid on the property, because that's really what you're looking at on that. That deductible would only apply, that 25,000 would only apply to the property deductible.
Mhm.
All your auto deductibles and, on the vehicles and things like that, that doesn't go that high. And then there's some other deductibles that are within the policy that are frankly $1,000 or $5,000 on like equipment and things like that. So all you're talking about when you're talking about that $25,000 deductible would be things like property damage to the buildings. We've got a couple, I was looking at this afternoon, and I was looking through the claims history, and it looks like in 2022, there were 4 claims. 4 claims totaling, with a total payout of $273,235, and that was the year
Ossian?
the roofs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There were 2 different two different roof claims. And then there were two smaller claims too. And then we came back in 2023, there was there was another claim associated with a weather loss, that was, 61,000. So on those three claims, suffice to say that you would have had an additional 15,000 in liability if you'd have had a $25,000 deductible.
On each claim, not 15 total,
Correct.
so 45.
So there's 45, but you know, there's a lot of years in here where, you know, like in 2025, you only had a total of $12,450 in claims. And a couple of those, I was trying to look and see here, what exactly those were. Those weren't even property claims, so those were on the auto side. So in 2025, you would have saved, you would have saved money. It's, again,
Right.
I tell people all the time, and I'm talking about deductibles a lot because the insurance industry is going through quite a transition right now in the way companies are looking at catastrophic losses. They seem to be more severe and more frequent. And, the industry's kind of moving toward, wind, hail, separate deductibles on wind, hail. This company hasn't done that. There were some other carriers that we looked at that were mandating a $100,000 deductible on wind, hail for accounts this size. And, this carrier is the only carrier that wasn't mandating a higher, catastrophic deductible like that, and they're still not. So, we've got a property value now of over $200 million. You start looking at that and you think, well, $10,000 deductible, that's pretty low, considering the exposure that you have. But then again, in that 2022-2023 year, you would have, say in 2023, you'd had an additional $15,000 in deductible to pay, but you would have saved 18. You'd have still been good even on that year. So,
Well, one thing to consider, if we do go to a higher deductible and we decide in a couple of years, maybe when we want to go back down to 10,000, we
Yeah.
may have,
yeah, I don't
they may
think,
not consider it.
I was gonna say, I would think that, once you move to that deductible, if you have a couple of bad years and you look at saying, oh, wait a minute, we had a terrible year, we had 4 claims, that's an additional 60 grand we paid out of pocket on claims, let's go back to the 10. I think that's gonna be tough to do, honestly.
That's a good point.
I think it's, once you stair step up to that 25, I think, that's probably gonna be where you're at. So, I would say it may be worthy of doing. I would hate to, I never wanna tell somebody what to do. I'd hate to make that recommendation and then next year you have 4 or 5 claims and you're like, wow, this guy, he let us down bad, But, if you had a year like you had last year, you'd save money, you'd save, almost $20,000. So, I think we did provide, I think your total up there on the screen is 529 for everything. I think if you had the $25,000 deductible, it goes down to like 511.
Right.
So,
And we have, David, until the 23rd, or what's the date that we have? Until we really have to decide.
the current term expires the 25th
25th,
of January.
yeah.
So,
So we have a little bit of time, we wouldn't be before the next board meeting. I mean, you're not obviously taking a vote on this, but I mean, is it, I guess I can ask you individually in terms of what you feel like, in terms of deductible and rolling that dice, but, or we can talk more later on it.
And have we verified that all of our buildings in the coverage are at replacement value?
They are.
Okay.
That's, we had in the fall of '24, of course, with the you know, with the
New middle
building
school.
project, we've really kept up to date with, you know, with the renovations and things like that. I will say also, just in looking at that figure, one thing you're not seeing for 2025 up there is, you know, during the building process, we had a builder's risk policy that was in place that covered that. That was separate from that. And that was about $64,000 each year that was in place, so.
That's true.
I don't know if that makes it better or worse, I'm just saying the increase might not be as much as it looks like there, because you're not gonna have that anymore either.
That's a good point.
I know you said you looked at the other carriers, and we changed to Astra since I've been on the board. Are we still
Yeah.
happy with them?
We're very happy with Astra,
Okay.
yes.
And to that point, you know, I would also say the workers' compensation carrier, we've had, over the time that I've handled this account, we've had three or four different carriers. You're with IPEP right now, and I can't say enough good about them. I mean, honestly, they make things very easy. To say something about the increase on the workers' compensation, just because it's there, and, you know, it's about a $12,000 uptick in the work comp. A lot of that's due to increased exposure, meaning payroll. Payroll's up about $1 million. And then the second thing I would say is right now, the loss ratio on the work comp is pretty high. It's at 135%. That will be reset. So you're still getting scheduled credit from the carrier, but your experience, what we call experience mod, is still at a 0.89. Next year, that's probably gonna go up significantly. So one of the things we did this year is we backed off on the schedule credit that we're giving to hold some of that back for next year when that mod hits, because that's gonna be significant. And the experience mod, just so you know, the experience mod is adjusted every 3 years. So with a couple of good years of experience, it will come back down. So, and the rates on the work comp are set by the state. So, not much we can do about that.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. Appreciate it. All right, just going through the rest of this, there are no checks have been outstanding for 2 or more years as of December 31st. And just looking at the ending bank balances, and just notice it's important to kind of look at the parentheses of the construction funds that were coming in at that time. So if you kind of subtract that from the top number, you can see we're pretty much been the same in terms of the ending bank balances, even a little bit up from last year if you look at that. Interest earned, you can kind of follow that. Obviously, when we had the higher balances, we had higher interest earned as well.
Except for in 21 and 22, when they didn't give you anything for interest.
Well, that you have to remember that those construction funds didn't actually come to November, so you didn't have much interest that whole time. But you're right, interest was lower. But still,
Interest is like
we didn't have it.
1%.
Right,
Yeah.
we didn't have it very often, or very
Yeah.
long either, so that balance.
You were better off spending money than saving money.
Then just looking at the quarterly financial report, and so just kind of, in parentheses, just referencing the board goal that you had to try to have it as our goal that we maintain 10%. We'll get to what that 10%, 15% mean in a little bit here, but you can kind of see where we're at with operations that dipping below that 15% a little bit at this point. And what we're going to talk a little bit is, if you've looked at the report here of just the philosophy that our balances, like, we're supposed to be spending our balances, right? We're not, in fact, I've heard rumors, I don't know exactly how it's gonna go, but just some accountability on the state that you're not building up high fund balances, like we're expected, right, to not sit on tax dollars, and we're not expected not to sit on tuition dollars, we're expected to use it for salaries and for programming, so we definitely have been using it. So, so this is just on there for anybody that can look at, going through, if you click on that link.
I did want to point out
Yeah,
one thing.
go ahead.
We did not transfer the complete $2.5 million from education to operations. We were able to cut that down, and that's one of our objectives.
Our goals, yeah.
For 2026 also.
Yeah, thank you, Doug.
Did we move anything to rainy day or not this
We
last
did,
year?
it says last time, we didn't build rainy day, no.
It's rainy day still over $1 million, but
Yeah, I just didn't know if we added any more to that or not.
We didn't.
Okay.
And then just anyone can click on this. This is what schools are required to do for their financial report, is go to our fiscal indicators. And keep in mind, it's always the previous year, because everyone just closed their books now, so they couldn't give you fiscal indicators when you just closed your books. So it takes them a year to do this, but we're required to use this. And just to go over, this is, you know, things that you already know, but just want to make sure we see the visual, that when we talk about education fund sources, that's all state tuition. So that's all state revenue, for the most part. You have a little bit down here, depending on if we used, there for a while, we used local income tax, because state tuition's based on income tax, and so we tried to have that symmetry, but since then, we've moved that back to operations. So those are the little numbers you kind of see at the bottom down there, or little graph, I should say. All right, so this is what I referenced with the 10%. So this is your balance, your fund balance is a percentage of basically what you're spending. And so this is where I've talked about where the state, from what I've heard, is gonna maybe start looking at schools, because there are schools that just kind of really build these fund balances, which it looks great. It looks nice to have a big, bar graph here, but that's not our job. That's not what we're asked to do. We're asked to use those funds that we bring in to make things better facilities, better programming, better pay, and all that. So we've been using the money the state's given us, and so you see that going down. You can see where we were 2020, and then where that's gone. We will, in education fund, be at 10.2 this next year. Again, I'll talk about some things moving forward. Operation fund revenue, you can see that's all property tax. There were some in there with stimulus money and that sort of thing that we put that up, and we have some miscellaneous funds, but it's mainly property tax. This is where you can see the biggest, right? Going up to 69% in 2016. But we've been using our operation fund, supplementing the capital projects we've been doing in that. So you can see that one's dipping down. So we do have to have a concerted effort, which I put in my letter, that we need to build these funds up. We've been aggressive with doing them. The rules have changed a little bit. And, we play the hand that's dealt with us, but revenues are being cut through property tax, so we have to make adjustments. And so we're gonna need to do that moving forward. And remember, all that we always talk about is that these three funds, we leverage and they work together. And so when one gets limited in the revenue, it kind of affects all of them. So what I wanted to do with the board, I haven't done this before, but I think it's important to put in context, and I just call it the if we had not, right, budget scenarios, because we've done a lot in the last 6 years, and in doing a lot in the last 6 years is why you see these these bars going down in the graph. So the first one I wanted to look at, we need a new curriculum. So we hadn't had curriculum purchased here since, I don't know, Ginger, 2012, 10, before, yeah, it's been a long time. And we're seeing benefits from that. Getting, the board at that time approved a major investment in our literacy curriculum for elementary and our math curriculum. I mean, major investments in that. We've had also science at the.
Science and social studies, and then also high school mathematics and science at the 6th grade level as well.
And we're seeing,
more.
and we're seeing increases in student achievement, which again, what we're all about is helping kids be successful. However, had we not done that, Now, take this with a little bit, because these are not, I wouldn't necessarily go to court with all of these numbers, right? Because the reason being is, if we wouldn't have done that, this was 4 years ago, right? So it would have changed other beginning fund balances. So there's all kinds of dominoes that would have been different. But if we just look at this year, at the end of this last quarter, because we were getting some reimbursement, which the state isn't necessarily doing anymore, we spent $450,000 out of our education fund. So had we not done that, right, we still could have transferred and kept our goal at 10%. We could have transferred another 450 to operations, so if you follow that down there, so operations would have been higher, that would have been a goal, our goal is 15%, that would have been 17.8%. So you follow me with that? The point I'm making there is that when you really are aggressive in using your fund balances for the better programming, kids, and salaries, and then things get changed, then you have to make adjustments, and that's what's happened. If we were still getting reimbursed for that, we didn't get 100% reimbursement, but we wouldn't have had $450,000 come out of our education fund this year. And that has ripple effects to the other funds. This one, again, we took on a major task in 2021 in righting some wrongs in our teacher evaluation scale. Not only did the state say you have to start at 40,000 as a starting teacher salary, but we also corrected all the inequities that we had in the process. We had people 14 years experience and one person making 10,000 more than the other person. And so we corrected all of that. So even being aggressive here, I said, okay, what if we didn't do that? What if we wouldn't have done that? And instead, and I picked 7.5% because that's how much of an increase it was for where starting pay was to where it went to at 40,000. That was 7%, 7.5% difference. So what if we just said that year, everybody gets a 7.5% increase because we're doing that for starting teacher pay. And then after that, we'd have done a 3% raise for everybody in the following years. You can see that our fund balance, like what that would have meant from a fund balance, how much higher those would have been in terms of percentage of fund balance as the expenditures. And again, this isn't 100% perfect because people left. I'm just trying to give a general idea. It's probably conservative. It's probably, that line is actually probably quite a bit higher when you look at that. And I could have done it differently, so we didn't give as much with raises. Point I'm making there is we invested a lot to change our teacher scale so that it was fair for everybody and that people actually had a vision for how they're going to get to the top of the pay scale. And we've added more people to the top of the pay scale, and that comes at a cost. And so when David was talking about $1 million increases in salaries, yeah, that's where it's coming from. This other one I want you to look at is, so when we look at increased revenue, so on the left, that colored graph, that's our revenue that went up over that period of time. To the right, that's what our assessed value went up. So you can see that's a direct, exactly the same slope in terms of revenue going up and then what we had in terms of AV going up. The bottom one, what I want us just to look at and think about, and again, none of this is blame, none of this is we should have done something differently. I'm just saying what if. So here, and this just wasn't the way that schools did it back in this day. But what if here we'd have kept this tax rate the same going across here, rather than having these dips? How would this have looked differently over here? So if these would have all stayed the same, if the tax rate would have stayed the same, and you would have captured that increased revenue, could you have done the Ossian project when it would have cost less in 2016? Because every time, if you wait to do things, costs don't go down, right? They go up. And so what if we would have done that then? What if we would have, fixed the football field, concession stand, and restroom then? Again, schools did things differently back then, and it's fine, and I'm not blaming anybody. We also had a pension debt that we had to pay down. So there's things that happened there. But I'm just asking, the what if. Does that change what's happened the last 6 years in the things that we were behind in doing? Then this last one I think is interesting because we have a cap on how much we can collect or how much we can raise the operation fund levy. So that's legislative, they've told us that's what it is. And so the reason we used debt service in the past is because we can't raise the operation. So someone might say, well, why don't you just use your operation fund to do all these projects and not take out bond issuances on that? Now, obviously, we couldn't have done that for a $43 million middle school project, but could we have done that for Ossian, for the baseball building, for the football building? Well, if we could have levied more in operation, yeah, we could have. But we didn't have that option because we're capped at what we could do there. We still kept the tax rate neutral, but we had to do it in debt service because we're not allowed to do it in operation. So if that weren't the case, so I'm just showing if there wasn't a cap on operation and it was just about your tax rate being level, whether it's in debt service or it's in operation, the taxpayer burden's the same, then we would have had an extra 1.2, almost 1.3 million in operation fund in 2024. We'd have had 3 million more last year in 2025, and going into this next year, we'd collect 3 million more. Wouldn't have changed the burden at all for the taxpayer. It would have been the same tax burden for them, but it would have freed us up to do things differently. And then we're not paying bond issuance fees. We're not paying interest on bonds. But again, that's just not the world we're in, right? And so I guess I just want to explain that because I've had different conversations with people and say, well, yeah, we just increased the debt. Well, we did because that's the rules that are in place for us to still do things that we want to do to improve a building that hadn't been touched since 1989 and facilities that we didn't have on our athletic field. So just wanted to show that, moving forward, we're doing what we're asked to do and we're fine with that. But I just think that was a important exercise to go that the reason why funds have gone down, because if you just look at this, it just looks like we're just spending money. Well, we're doing it within, what we're given to do. Any questions on that or comments? Is it helpful to look like that or not? Was that just by talking and no one listening?
Congrats.
Yeah, just the what if we hadn't done things, is that helpful or not?
We can what if everything to death.
Well, I meant so that you know that we did it for a reason.
Right.
The point is that it had impact, like improving programming, improving curriculum, paying people more, has consequences, right?
Right.
You can not do that, and you can have really high fund balances,
Right.
but that's not our goal.
And the other consequence is that we could have had a higher turnover rate and.
That probably saved us money, but, yeah.
I'd rather not lose high quality, highly skilled and highly dedicated teachers.
No, and I think when you look at it, one of the reasons why salaries has gone
And
up,
staff.
we've hired a lot of teachers from other districts, higher on the pay scale, so, which is a concerted effort, like we want to hire the best and really have. So I think that's probably more of the indicator on that, but, all right.
All right, are we ready to adjourn the?
There's a fiscal indicators letter. I don't know if you have to do that or not.
Yeah, that's just something that I have to post. We're having issues with our
I just
printer.
want to make sure we don't miss
Yep.
something.
Yep, no, I can read the letter. If you'd like me to, I can put it up here. And this is just, we're required to give this to the board, but it's per our law that we have to do, and it's based on fiscal indicators. And generally, we just say fund balances are strong, right? This year, I felt like I needed to say something a little bit differently. So at the bottom of that, due to efforts to continually maintain competitive staff compensation models, add core curriculum, and improve facilities, there have been significant drops in fund balances. Although the fund balances remain strong, which shows on our bond rating that we had, efforts will need to be made with current and future budget cycles to reduce expenditures in both the education fund and operation fund. And so we've started that conversation with our admin team. I'd love to have that conversation too here in a board meeting, because we're gonna have to select some priorities. Like because we've pretty much done it all, especially in education the last few years. We're gonna have to prioritize some stuff because we do need to reduce expenditures in both of those funds. Any questions on that?
All right, we will adjourn the annual Board of Finance meeting and come back to the regular board meeting, moving to discussion items 2026-2030 facility equipment and vehicle plan. So, I know this is one of the things that we put in, that we wanted to kind of see completed, for this year on the kind of an expectation in our goals document. So just so that, one, the public is aware of some things, and some expenditures that might be coming up. And so the board is also aware of like, hey, as we are looking at funds and we are looking at expenditures and maybe we need to look at some other, avenues of revenue, that we have kind of a plan in place or an identified plan in place of replacement, because the last thing you want is like, hey, this $500,000 piece of equipment now no longer works and we need to replace this tomorrow and we weren't planning for this. And so, it's just to kind of talk through and to see kind of what it is that we're looking to replace, why we're looking to replace it, and the timing around looking to replace it.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask Adam and Byron and Amy to come up. Amy doesn't really get to have fun until the last slide, but she's there for moral support. But yeah, just going through the 3-year facility, I did 3-year with that, just because Adam was talking, and maybe you can talk a little bit, Adam, about why 3-year and not 5-year. The others have 5-year, but
I think for my portion of it, there's so much that changes. You don't know when equipment's gonna break, you don't know how anything's gonna affect, a roof might blow off. There's just so many changes. I could try to predict what's gonna happen within the next 3 years, but tomorrow something might break and we don't. Most of our equipment's newer stuff, except for the stuff that's on this sheet that I tried to put on there. It might last another 10 years, but that's why I wanted to just do a 3-year plan, because things change rapidly.
And just, sorry to interrupt, just to kind of quickly understand, like, as we look into the capital plan for next year, these are the things that we're likely to see on that. Is that kind of where we're gonna see some of these things when that's coming at budget time, or I guess at the end of the year? So, like, is this the place where we're gonna see these, or are these things where you're planning to budget for within the operations fund already?
can I jump in on that?
Yeah.
Just because when we go through that process, what we've done in the past is Adam has mainly on that done a wish list
Yeah.
on there. And so we end up having more on the capital projects plan that you have in the
Right.
budget than what you're actually probably going to do. I do kind of feel like we need to just narrow that and just be, this is what we're gonna do. And, but that's just kind of the way, and that's not Norwell, that's, everybody does it like that. Going back even when I was a building principal, but I do think that I'd say when we're doing those, we need to be a little bit more just, this is what we're gonna do. And not do it as much of a wish list and bringing things in. I know, Todd, I know just in the texting that you had a question on geothermal. That also gets to when we're looking at like utilities. I mean, so we're doing some analysis, Linda is doing this, reaching out to people in our region about utility costs, and our electrical bill is utility is so much higher than just about anybody. The one where it was a little bit closer was Jay County, but they have one building that's geothermal. So it's one thing with if you have it in your homes, geothermal, your gas is gonna go down, but then your electric goes up. And again, not saying we should or shouldn't do geothermal, but it's like a significant, and we'll talk about that at one of our meetings, but it's a significant amount of money more and so I think we're 300,000, if I'm saying that right, is it about 300,000 more on electrical, but then gas I think is like 100,000 less or something. So we're basically 200,000 more just with that. But then also the underlying monster is the geothermal pump. So you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so the geothermal pumps at Lancaster were put in 2012, brand new. The life expectancy of them is 15 to 18 years. So we're at 25 years right now. And just to give you a quick rundown of it.
2002.
2002.
Yeah,
Okay.
12 on
That's a good
Like,
one. Sorry.
No, we're not.
He's not a math major.
Yes, 2002, sorry.
Okay.
So a quick rundown, we have 85 classroom units. We just had one go out. Each unit costs $12,000 for parts and labor. So again, we've only replaced 2 of them so far to this date. Again, they might last 5 more years, they might not go out tomorrow. There's 6 larger units for the gym, cafeteria, and the library, 23 entryway heaters, and 16 energy recovery units that were all put in 2012. So there's gonna be at some point, it's gonna.
2002.
2002.
Caught you now.
Yeah.
You're thinking of the high school.
2002, yes, 2012, that's our next issue is the
Yeah.
high school. So when I
Yeah.
say 2002 for that one, just reverse it. So at Lancaster, we're trying to replace the parts that are needed in that. So the last one we just had go out, the compressor's the biggest portion of it, that's the problem. That no longer is available to the market for that part. So, correct, yes. So now we have to replace every unit as it goes out. If the compressor goes out, there's other parts, there's fans, computer boards, stuff like that, that we have some in stock, but we don't have compressors in stock, so we'd have to replace the whole entire unit. Maintenance team, we have 6 of them in stock for emergency situations. You know, if it's 5 degrees outside, we can swap one out. So the maintenance has actually swapped one out yesterday into today, which would probably save, they have a $4,000 price for labor, so we would probably save a couple $1,000s. But my plan would be to buy, if we replace one, we buy a new one. And so the $1 million on there is if every single one of them went out within this year. When is it gonna happen, I don't know, but that's just something we have to plan for.
And we did buy some, so we did spend some money, like you said, to have some sitting there just in case. But the problem with doing that gets into the whole warranty thing. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, so I forget when we bought them, 3 years ago?
3 years
maybe?
ago, yeah.
So it's a 1-year warranty on it, so now they've been sitting in stock for 5 years, now the warranty's bad. Then the other problem is the refrigerant from 2002 is an R22.
Yep.
Then it changed to R411, and now it's at R12. So we're actually 3 cycles behind on our coolant, so we can't even use that coolant anymore, which is based on each individual unit, so it's not a big issue, but we can't get R22. There's gonna be a point where we can't get R22 anymore. So the longer we keep them in stock, the longer we're gonna have more issues.
So that's why if someone would say, well, why aren't you just buying these and staying ahead? That's kind of why, right? And so, yeah, and we do, like in rainy day, if we had to do this tomorrow and say we had to use rainy day and then we repay back rainy, like we could do it, like we could replace it, but it's, yeah, no, I don't want to do it either, but I mean, I also didn't put in the pumps, but, but I mean, now we have that, right? And so that's something we need to,
So that's a pretty complex issue you have on
Yeah,
there.
and then there's other issues if you wanna, so there's individual cab unit heaters that are 120 volt electric. They no longer make those 120, they have to be 220s to fit that style. So now we have to pull out the electric for that 110, put 220 back in order to get that. So there's just a lot of different, and then, I'll just keep going. So there's controllers in each unit that are now obsolete. And as we get into our cycle of our 3-year thing, the head end that controls all of those heating and air conditioning units is no longer gonna be supported at some point. So that's where you see in 2027, the redoing of our head end to make sure that we still have controls over all of our heating and air conditioning. So once one unit goes out, we have to replace the controller portion on it and replace the whole entire unit.
So you have, okay, so you have issues at Norwell.
So we're gonna run into that same issue here.
Lancaster.
At 2012, all of these were put in. This one's not as bad. There's 60 classroom heaters, 12 energy recovery units, 12 cab heaters, and 12 VAV boxes that were put in 2012. Same life expectancy, 15 to 18 years. So in 2027, we're running out of time on those. But again, I don't know, I can't tell you when they're gonna
right,
fall.
right.
But we wanna try to plan for that, so we have that in stock that we can, and those are probably, we could probably get compressors for, stuff like that still.
And how much will those cut our electric bill if we start replacing this stuff? Do you have any idea?
I don't know, I mean, because I think it's still, I mean, you're still gonna have higher electrical costs than you are cats, I mean, that's the whole point of it, but I don't know.
More efficiency?
I would think, I mean, I don't know, do you know
Yeah,
that?
I'd have to talk to a heating and air conditioning guy. I would imagine they're more efficient than what they were in 2002.
Right.
Some of the energy recovery units, that might be and what that is the fresh air goes out, it heats the air back up, and then it sucks it back in, so you're not trying to condition 5-degree air, right, and then trying to use our units to heat that air back up. So some of those might need to be replaced, which might help our energy bill.
And I mean, if you're gonna spend that much, we can cut the electrical bill.
Mm.
Okay, go ahead.
There was another, I mean, 'cause you can read all that, there's another question that you had on repairing, and I had it too, Todd, so I mean, it wasn't a.
Oh, I thought he was gonna keep reading. Yeah, the track, what is up with the track here?
So I'll show you a couple pictures of it real quick, and you can pass them down. So I went out there and took pictures of it,
Okay.
and during the wintertime,
You're getting
asphalt,
snow off first.
yeah, asphalt can, contrast to expand.
Right.
And at that point is during the middle of the winter, where the starting line, it's pretty bad, whether it goes back down, and we've always had a little bit of a crack there. So we need to do something with it this year for the spring sports. That's where that 50,000 repair is, and that might last for 2 or 3 years, and then we don't have to repair the track in 3 years. But at some point, we need to redo the whole entire track to make it stand forever, or, to reinforce the surface of it.
I mean, we're dropping 50 grand to repair it, and then we're gonna go back in 2028 and replace it for 350,000.
Well, and that's, in order for spring sports to happen, you have to do something with it. It might not be 50 grand, I just have that on there as a placeholder for it. But if you don't, there's gonna be issues with track.
This is where I think the strategic plan or whatever you want to look at, because I know when the football field was redone, we looked at making it an 8-lane track
Mm-hmm.
and have it be the proper size, but in order to do so at that time, we had to move some things.
Bleachers.
The bleachers less steep and wider,
Yeah.
and then we would be able to do that.
So I
But
think-
then that goes from a $350,000 project to a
Right.
$1 million project.
Right, but I think it would be good for the public especially to know, hey, because spending $350 is not gonna be fun, but if we know that the cost is 1.5 for a new 8-lane track and everything that goes into it, it's a good discussion to have, so I think it'd be good to open that back up.
Well, I think we have another discussion too about now that the middle school access drive is there, can we just pull them back, since that road access between the two buildings generally gets shut off, during morning and afternoons anyways? Do we limit it to a single, traffic or a one-way, or, you know what I mean? Since that was really the only way to get to the middle school for the most part, unless you went all the way around. But, I think maybe, again, like Corey said, looking at through a strategic plan process of that to figure out what makes the most sense financially.
Sure.
And then you got fertilizer and spray.
Yep.
Is that for you guys?
No, we hired that out.
You don't chemical license.
Correct. That, and we can't get the chemicals that, I haven't looked into it, but we can't go to buy bulk chemicals unless we have that chemical license. So it's about, for at Lancaster what we do is we spray weed control in the springtime and summer fertilizer, fall weed control, fall fertilizer, and that's just around the buildings. We're not doing our geothermal fields, we're not fertilizing anything, and that's basically for all of the schools. We try to keep the building up, like the weed control down everywhere, but fertilizer we only do around the buildings. So at Lancaster it was about 7,000, Austin was 7,000, high school was about 7,800, geothermal field was 4,300, and the biggest one is our athletic fields. So we do spring and fall weed control, then we do 5 applications of fertilizer throughout the year, and then we do grub control there, and so that was about 14,000.
And I don't know the answer to this one because I don't, being at school and all, but if someone did get a chemical license, is that a possibility to actually not have to go through?
It could be a possibility, but we also, the timing of everything, the equipment to do it all. So I would just have to look at pricing and see, what type of equipment you need to do. Do we have the manpower to do it? And does it all equal out or save us money? But that's,
I mean, little small spray tanks, I don't know if they're doing the whole yard or.
well, let me tell you this, Todd. Couple small, let me find that. How small of spray tanks you want to buy? So at, let's see, at the high school, middle school, we mow 62 acres. That's what we mow. At Austin's 22, at Lancaster's 32. So we can get a couple 5-gallon sprayers.
Well, you go mow, you can spray at the same time.
Oh, there you go.
You want to spray at the same time, meat and feed, right?
Yeah,
But, so that's also on here is mowers, right?
yep,
How many hours do you guys get on one of those mowers?
sorry. So at the high school, we started a program with John Deere where we bought the original mower and then we traded in every year for $3,500. And last year, we had 380 hours on just the high school mower. At Aussie, we average about 285 hours, at Lancaster's 365 hours. So those two mowers at Aussie and Lancaster we've had. The Aussie one's 2019 and the Lancaster one's 2021. So my plan would be to combine both of those and get just down to one mower and then replace that one every year. So we would have probably 500 hours on one mower for the Lancaster and Ossian, and then about 385 hours on the one for the high
So
school.
you're going to cut a number off.
Yeah.
Yeah, and have a trailer, is that?
Yeah, we just check. And ideally, we'd like to hire somebody. The last 3 or 4 years, we've had a teacher or hired a part-time person, one to mow at Aussie and one to mow at Lancaster. I'd like to find a part-time person to just mow both buildings, and then they would just have a truck that transports that one trailer or mower back and forth.
Have we done an energy study in a while? Or ever?
I've talked to Barton Co. about that, and we've got a price to do it. It was $41,000 to do it. It's just, we haven't decided to do anything with it at this time. Because, you know, does it weigh out or not weigh out? We probably need to have an engineer come in and make sure, I mean, because they can come in and look at our equipment and make sure that it's efficient. Not just our building control portion of it is what they were gonna look at, to make sure that all of our controls were within what they needed to be to operate efficiently. So that would probably be something we could see what we could save in energy costs.
Yeah, I know a lot of schools in the past had done, even contracted with some guaranteed savings companies in regards to input, like you almost had to hire a full-time person to monitor, you know, to make sure lights were being turned off and all of that, you know, and really put it and implement it. I know a lot of schools saved a lot of money at that time. I'm wondering if it's because of the fact that power isn't getting any cheaper, it's only getting higher, and our revenue is going down, that we should maybe consider taking a look at some of those to see if there's some energy saving opportunities. I know a lot of schools, from conversations with other school districts, are starting to look at solar again, because solar will guarantee a rate where a power company is not guaranteeing a rate.
I think we looked at that at one point this year, and the solar company said it didn't make sense for
Yeah.
us or them to continue to go forward looking at it because of the study that they did.
Yeah, and maybe it doesn't make sense if it doesn't pay off, especially if ours isn't at, you know, I know there are some power companies that are much higher, or seeing much higher, demand for, raising rates versus what the REMC seems to be doing. So I don't think we're taking a hit compared to some other parts of the state, which are essentially resulting in some legislative conversations and a whole change in the IURC board. So, but yeah, maybe it might make some sense to take a look at and see if, again, if there's some opportunities for us to save revenue to make sure that some of these things get done. I think it might not be a bad idea to spend a little to save a lot. Anything else from you? I think everything looks pretty self-explanatory, and
I took all your time, so.
yeah, thanks.
I should have let you say it, Amy. All right, so equipment replacement plans, we wanted to include technology and maintenance with it. There really is not equipment. We'll get into vehicles for Amy and transportation, but combine the two. All right, Byron.
So on these lists, I have stuff that is coming up that is going to be needing replaced. As in the technology world, you can always try to make something last a little longer. These are what I would deem as reasonable lifetime cycles. We've been through times where we've made things last until they quit working in the middle of a school year, and then we replace them, and we all know that's no fun. So on here, I have stuff that is coming up again. I don't know if you have big questions, or if you want me to start through the list.
I don't see anything that really stands out. Do you?
The laptop cost me, I thought we leased, do we not lease them?
So in the past, so a little history, once upon a time, we were allowed to charge
Fees, yeah.
fees. So then we leased them through that and paid them that way. The last time we bought them with
ESSER money.
ESSER money.
Mhm.
So right now, we are not on a lease. That is the cost. It doesn't mean it has to be that year, that's all of it. We could do a lease again and then spread that payment out. But that payment then would be that divided by however many years that lease is.
Because to me, lease, I'm not sure we should be, it will come down to dollars and cents, obviously, but I think I'd like to look at a lease, because it doesn't really make sense to me that we buy them, because they're not gonna give us a trade-in value that's anywhere near what we buy them for. And then I think every parent might wanna yell at us if we don't ask you why we have we have iPads still. All the students have those
So K
laptops.
through 2 have iPads still.
Okay.
Laptops were decided on, and there was a group, and before I was in this position, and there was a group of staff, administrators, the previous technology director that were involved in making those decisions, and they came to that conclusion. I was not in those meetings. I know there was a push at the higher levels for students to start learning how to use a laptop instead of iPads, so when they go to college, they have some familiarity with it. I can say that I think that's been a good thing for students. It might have been a struggle over the last few years, but there's definitely something where students need to learn that at some level, at some point before they go off, because there's lots of students that somewhat struggle with using those as we got different devices, and it's kind of highlighted that, yeah, at some point we need to have kids learning how to do something besides on an iPad. What level that changes, again, if we go to do a refresh, we can have those conversations again and figure out what we all deem is the best plan going forward. I'm not sitting here saying we have to do the same thing, but that's a ballpark price of where we would be on replacing devices, whether it's iPads or a different laptop or whatever it may be.
And Corey, I would just say from a financing standpoint, I agree with you. However, that was an approved thing for ESSER at the time.
Right.
And so when you think about that, especially when they said we could no longer charge for it anymore, the fact that we used ESSER to buy that at that time saved us $300,000 every year that we didn't spend on it. So
Right.
I don't disagree with you. At that time, though, that made sense because it was an approved purchase.
I think it would end up being a wash in the numbers, because they're not dumb either. They're gonna make sure it mattered, or it is pretty equal. My thought is, if we lease things, we can send them back and they gotta deal with it. If we
Right.
buy them, we have to deal with it more, so.
Yeah, so we've learned a few things in the last 2 years, right? Which is painful.
Thanks for
but-
opening that up, Corey.
But it's good.
Well, that's why I said people will yell at us if we don't ask
No,
them.
you're right, you're right,
Yes,
you're right.
you're
In
fair to
fact,
ask those
you want to talk about that a little bit, about kind of the
Yeah,
struggles?
so I'm gonna go way back to iPads, the first round of iPads, which I don't know how many of us remember that, but the first round of iPads were not great either. We had lots of problems with those, and we learned some things that round too, and then the next round you changed some stuff, and the next round was better, still wasn't perfect, but now these cases are way better, but they didn't have those at the beginning. So there's just lots of variables that you learn as you go. We bought through a third party, which is still a lot of times happens, but they bought through another party, which bought through Dell, which turned into a lot of this with me standing in the middle. If you know me, I'm not the most grumpy person. I don't like to be mean to people. I don't like to make things difficult, and
We got there, right?
I got to being very grumpy. And we had weekly meetings with Dell, and we argued to the end of where I thought we could go. I had other conversations with other people that do fixing of devices, whatever that may be, and had conversations of what I could try and where I could go. And I feel like I've been down about as many roads as I could get down. I will tell you that Dell they gave us extra devices for free. They've also covered a lot of repairs that they didn't want to, because I said I wasn't gonna pay for them. There is just some inherent problems with the batch of devices we have that they are still fixing them.
And
But the
Belmont,
rate at which it's happening is crazy,
And
as
just
you
to-
guys all well know.
and to put that in context, Belmont bought the same model, but went directly through Dell, and they've not had.
Yeah, so
Same issue, so
they
it's just-
claim they don't have the same problems we have, so they bought a year before we did. Do we
Yeah,
get a
okay.
batch that's different a year later that's, I mean, we've all bought cars that one year we thought we had a good car and it turned out to be the bad one, and the next year, you know, you go online and you find, don't buy a 2021 whatever, buy the 22 version or whatever, and I don't know if that's what happened to us. I can tell you I will not buy a Dell again.
I think I'm just gonna say it out loud. The obvious is, I'm open to all the options, like, when do they switch from iPads to computers? Do we just switch and looking at leases versus purchasing? I'm not gonna tell you to do it, but I think we should probably just look at that again. Because
Yeah.
when I see that number on there in 2026 and then again in 2030, like, I know have to spend money on them, but it's a big number all at once.
Yes,
And
yes,
I
and I
know
could have,
that's
I
not
could
the
have,
same.
I could have changed that to a lease and put it on every year.
Yeah.
It's very easily we could have done that.
Yeah, because I wonder too, if either it's a lease or it's the purchase, if we could stagger and do half, you know, I think it might make more sense
the
to
other thing-
level it out over a 4-year period
Mhm.
instead of big purchase, nothing, big purchase.
Yeah, one way or the other. The other thing is I think the iPads, especially at the lower level, we run into, so when you buy an Apple device, they will give you 4 years of Apple Care, which is wonderful. But I think you can make those devices last a little longer than 4 years, where we could save some money, and I've talked to some third parties who will do the repairs for those on years after, years 4 of those, and we could get some length out of some iPads, at elementaries to try to make that cost not quite as heavy and get a couple relief years in there.
Yeah, I just think especially given with SEA 1 and the unknown revenue, if we could try to get a little bit more of a flat line, you know, I think it would be good if we did 600, instead of 1.2, down to 160, and then to, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
so in the past, that's what it would have been for, like, I think 2013 was the first year of 1-to-1, and up until we bought this batch, there had been a number that was very similar every year, and this is just what that base payment was.
Yeah.
And it was kind of baked into the.
I think it's gonna
cost.
make the long-term budgeting easier if it's a flat number.
Right.
The only other couple of comments I wanted to have was, there's some security camera stuff on there. I'm looking for some grants. The company I've been buying cameras from has a grant writing, department that they said, I have a meeting later this month with them that they can try to work through, that if you pay them some money, they'll write the grants. They're like 90% sure that you will get some money back. So looking at some of those things for some of that stuff. So some of you see some of those numbers, those are the numbers without grants. I don't wanna put grant numbers on there and then come back to you and tell you, sorry, this is, or they go the other way and say this is a lot less than it was, a lot more, but I just wanted you to know I'm, having some of those conversations as well.
Cool, thank you. Any questions?
And you guys already talked about the mower exchange, so that, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Amy, you're up.
Thanks, Byron.
The bulk of
Mine's
this.
real easy. So the state requires transportation departments to give a 5-year replacement plan. So we have a 5-year replacement plan for school buses. I know for a long time, we kind of put those on the back burner. And I even went out to like 2037 just so that we have all of our fleet in a replacement plan idea. So I have that even farther out. But we're looking at replacing 3 buses, basing it off of the age of the vehicles, just so that they're replaced, because at 12 years, they have to have a biannual inspection instead of just an annual inspection, so.
Yeah, and that goes to just going back to that graph we showed at, from 2013, when we were paying down the pension debt. So you were still collecting taxes for that, but you had to offset that with bus replacement or whatever, so that's why. I don't think buses had been replaced for about, I don't know what it was, maybe a 5-year period. And so the last 6 years, also looking at that graph and how it's gotten down, we replaced 9 buses, Deb, I think something like that. And so we spent a lot in the last 6 years kind of catching up. And to kind of your point, Chad, we want to get back on a cycle that has a little bit more predictability, but it's kind of what we inherited. And again, had that pension debt that had to be paid down, that was part of it. Every school district dealt with that, so.
Now, if we can just guarantee a flat line purchase price.
That would be spectacular. I've already updated it to so I don't, for this year, we have, the second, I think it's the third line, bus 38. It's one of the smaller, like the white buses. It's used on a route. Those prices were like $105,000. They're now, basic is $120,000. And that's like no options, nothing.
So it's a white minibus with 2 wheelchair.
Yeah, any of the minibuses, like the ones that have 14 seats in them, just as basic as you can get them is $120,000.
And I think, just so the public understands, we did, why are we buying minibuses and not passenger vans? And that's because school corporations are not allowed to buy passenger vans. They are illegal for schools to own and operate.
14 passenger minibus is a little more versatile too, that you can, for like sporting events and things like that, you have smaller sporting things or competitions that they can utilize those. Then we're not driving a big yellow bus that gets less fuel mileage, and we're paying a driver more, and we're hauling a bus that's half empty or quarter full and get there. We could have just taken a minibus, so.
Amy, did you want to talk at all, I don't mean to extend our meeting here, but did you want to talk at all about like maintenance of bus and something like cleaning that might sound like?
Yeah, so we've had these conversations in some of our meetings too. Something that I've looked at for like cutting some costs within transportation. It does seem probably pretty minute, but if you think about it, you drive your personal vehicles every day. You don't wash your car like once a year, unless you're Mike. He said that he never washes his, so that's fine. But if we wash our buses more frequently, it will lessen the amount of wear and tear on the body, rust, things like that. So looking into, I know there's not a lot of options around here that we can have drivers take them. So we've talked about if and when we get a bus garage, having that as an option so that it's right here, that we can wash them on a routine basis to kind of cut down some of that dirt that builds up, because we do have dirt roads. But also in the meantime, there's a newer truck wash over by Huntington that I've looked into possibly having some of our buses go there, because in January, none of us really want to be standing outside with a garden hose spraying down a school bus. So I don't really want to do it in June either, so it's not time of year. I just don't want to stand outside and spray down a bus with a garden hose. But it does make it a whole lot better longevity of the buses. They last a lot longer, and when we have the age of a fleet that we do, we need to be able to take care of them as best as we can. So even things like cleaning them routinely on the outside will help with that.
Are there any neighboring school districts that have a bus wash?
There is, yep, and that was another option as well. Bluffton, I know, has one. I'm not sure about anything else that would be closer than, I know that there's the bus wash in Huntington. It's really like a truck wash that's freestanding. I know sometimes there are other schools that will partner together with neighboring school districts, and that's great if they're able and willing to do that. A lot of times though, they don't have the manpower to do it. They don't necessarily want just any driver to drive in and do it. And to be able to have it on and accessible when our drivers would need to go do it would be something that we would have to work through with another district, which we can definitely look into that, but those would be some options as well.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Amy. The only other thing we had on here, I don't know if you want to talk on it, Adam, but maintenance truck and plows, and quite honestly, we've been putting this off for, oh wait, did you have more?
No, you have way too many.
So we've actually put this off a little bit, maintenance truck, but we do need to be careful with that, because, you know, obviously they're gonna have wear and tear also.
Yeah, so the next 2 years, I have replacing one maintenance truck each year. Reason being, we have two trucks that are 2012 miles. One of them's got 108,000 miles, but we just put $4,000 or $5,000 into the brake system on that one. With salting, plowing, it's just hard on vehicles, and so I think 10 years is probably about as long as you can get out of the truck without it breaking down continually. In order to plow all of our, because we do all of our own plowing, if we're down a truck, it makes it harder for us to get things done before school starts. And then our other truck is another 2012. That one's got 147,000 miles on it, and we just put $5,000 into that one last year. And that price on there includes a new plow, truck, and salt spreader. We talked about replacing, or taking the old plow, putting it on the new truck, and it just, like both of the 2012 trucks, the one plow, we have probably $700 that we have to put into it for it to keep plowing this year. And then the other one's a V-blade, which only gets about 8 feet at a time when it plows, and then in the middle, it leaves about a 6-foot gap. So you're really only getting it, I mean, it just doesn't do as good as what the rest of our trucks have. So that's where we're at with the truck situation.
What kind of trucks do you have with you?
So the last one was a Dodge 2500. We had 2 Dodge 2500s and a F-250. So the last year I think it was when we got the Ford, we did Ford, Chevy, and Dodge, and that was the cheapest one, and this year we just did Dodge.
Obviously, it's in the price still not diesels.
Are you able to get state bid on those?
Say that again?
Are you able to get state bid on those?
I don't know that we've ever done that.
Gone to the state bid opportunity, or so the state puts out?
No, we just, whenever we've done it before in the past, we just went to the local dealerships. So I don't know if we've ever done
You might
state
ask them about the state bid,
Yeah.
since the state bids for a lot of different vehicles, and
Right.
as a taxpayer, or as a taxing entity, we should be able to jump on that state bid process, I would think.
Yeah.
The only other thought is if we're thinking 10 years per truck, 75,000 a truck, it'd be $7,500 a year, and I know that there's a big company, PPR, that leases them.
Mhm.
It might be worth looking at it, because then they have to deal with, I mean, I know there's contracts, but
Right.
it might be worth looking at just as another option.
Yep.
I don't know what the cost is.
Yeah, I don't know what the cost of renting one.
But they can put those things on and build it exactly how you need it, so
Right.
if
That
it's
can
cheaper
come
than
down
that,
for
it
sure.
might be worth it.
And do those half tons or those 3/4 tons?
3/4.
They didn't have a half ton.
It won't be real good. Cost.
Okay, any other final questions? Thank you for that. Any members of the audience that wish to come to the podium in regards to the facility, equipment, and vehicle plan? All right, we are going to move on to the middle school archery program.
All right, so Andrew's here, and Jeremy Davis is never coming to another board meeting. Right? He's also here to help.
I want to hear what he has to say.
I think he's pretty excited.
They're not all like
I'm
this.
excited to bring something to the table that will cost us $0, for the most part.
Yeah, that's not zero.
Famous last
Where's
word.
that insurance guy?
Yeah.
We are interested in bringing archery to the middle school. There are several schools in our area that are already doing it, who participate in NASP tournaments with club teams, or they have it in their PE curriculum as well, and that's what we're proposing at this start of the program, that it would just be a PE program, and then we would assess whether it should be a club in the future. So as we talk about it, and Jeremy's gonna go over more of the specifics and how this started, but Jeremy came from a neighboring district who had archery programming, brought the idea to me as a, can we think about this as a club, as part of our PE programming, and he is our health teacher. So this isn't even directly his job, or proposing to be his job, but Marty Ballard, our PE teacher, is already in process or completed the NASP certification, so he is certified to teach this in our PE program. We already have the area in our north gym with the curtain allows it to be a safe location for the archery to be done during PE hours. So I'll let Jeremy talk a little bit about the program and how this came to be.
See?
There's carpet that
See?
needs to be replaced. On the list.
Just to give you an idea of what he means by we didn't pay for anything, so, through NAST, you can get a grant, and we got roughly $3,800, or a little over $3,800 worth of equipment for free. They covered everything with a DNR grant, and then a NAST does a grant themselves, which left us about $500 left to pay for. Whitetail Unlimited is really big in the Helping School Start program, so they stepped up to pay for it. And then on top of them, somebody else stepped up before them because they were talking with them at their annual banquet, and we had a local Grady Salfring, you know who that is. He's a vice president of, I may say this wrong, Tissapee? Well, it's a local board hunting chapter, and he offered to pay the $500, so everything's been covered. We didn't pay anything out of our pocket to get anybody certified. I was previously certified, so I didn't have to do that. Part of the program is 4 training scholarships. So we have the ability to get 3 more people trained on top of Marty. That training includes 2 hours of online training. When I did it, it was 8 hours of field training. So I spent 8 hours in the gym, learning how to teach archery with the DNR people. So he did 2 hours online, then he had to do a 5-hour field day, I believe, out south of Whitley Elementary this past fall. So goal is to get interest in PE class. As far as club, I'm kind of more of trying to see how that would look. We had a club at my previous school, and it worked out pretty well, but I was the PE teacher, so I did most of the PE teaching. I didn't help with club too much, so obviously Marty's going to be doing the PE part. I'm kind of figuring out the club part to see if we gain good interest when he does his unit through archery. Doing it with all 3 grade levels, I think, will be really cool and beneficial, and it gives the kids something new to learn. Personally, it was one of my best units I had as a PE teacher. It's something different. And it's something that kids really just grasp onto and always wanted more. I get asked all year long, we're doing archery again. So it's a really neat opportunity to bring to Norwell. Any questions? Safety, you might, probably safety. That's the other question. Somebody's gonna ask.
Like, are you using real arrows?
Yeah. So,
Suction cups.
NASP has never had anybody report any injuries or any problems. They're very specific with the way they train, so they want you to teach it exactly how you teach it, and they break it down into multiple steps, so where you learn how to take the bows apart and put them together as the instructor, and teach the kids that, and there's a lot of safety aspect to it. But yes, they do use field points. They do have targets that can sustain a field
But
point.
these recurve bows?
Yeah, compound bows that go up to 20-pound draw weight.
Oh.
So it's not a very heavy draw weight. They're adjustable for kids who can't pull 20 pounds. I believe they go from 20 to 14 is what they recommend. They can drop to 10, but most instructors say 14 is kind of the safer play for that for kids who are weaker. So it comes with right-handed bows and left-handed bows. So and there's a bunch of different attachments for adaptive abilities and things like that. So there's really not anybody who can't do it. So.
Will you then compete as a club?
You can, yes, you can absolutely compete as a club. You don't necessarily have to. Obviously, if we do get a lot of interest in PE class and we start a club, I don't think the goal is going to be to compete right away, because obviously we have to see what numbers would be, timeframes, transportation is going to play a role. Do parents do that? Because a lot of this, everybody who would get certified would be on a volunteer basis right now, because obviously it's not going to be something that's paid for. So that would play a role in competitions if parents are willing to drive or provide transportation or anything like that. So,
What would it cut? Because you're going to put it in class time. What would be cut?
Nothing as of now. You just make adjustments to the scope and sequence of the class. We're also talking, we had a conversation recently about our aquatics program. That was something that was cut with attrition. And we've had issues with our pool that wouldn't sustain an aquatics program over the last 3 years. So that decision was based on primarily the availability of the pool, because when we did have it, we had kids out of the water for substantial amounts of time. But I coupled that with this conversation of the middle school mentality, not moving towards a junior high methodology, is to expose students to a variety of things. Not necessarily to really dig into any one thing, but to expose and then to lean into the things that they enjoy, so that they do have a pathway for the future. And I have to give credit, I've said this before in these settings, but we've leaned into that In terms of our building, we have opportunities that a lot of schools have gone away from, whether that be through FACS or technology education, the typical, shop class. We have those things, and a lot of schools have ditched those efforts because of the costs associated with it or the staff and training that it takes. We've leaned into that as a community, and I truly appreciate that. I've had many of your kids in our building who I've seen ascribe to different things, and not necessarily archery is not going to be everyone's cup of tea. But I have enough kids that I know who come to me with pictures on their phone about their archery experiences to know that this is a viable option for our kids and something that will bring interest that wasn't there before, and that's the point.
To piggyback off of that, the requirements to maintain the grant is pretty minimal. It's, so for PD specifically, he only has to teach it 10 days total, 10 hours per instructor, so he'd hit that 10 hours within 2 days of teaching it. He did 6-7 periods of it, so.
And we had 3 trimesters per year, so that flies by in terms of the whole year hours.
Well, I think, I know a lot of districts have it, especially in the middle school level. I think it's great to provide the opportunity, appreciate the grant effort, and to be able to bring it in at no cost. Maybe insurance goes up a little bit, but hopefully it's dollars.
Actually, it doesn't.
Okay, great.
Speak to that.
Yeah,
It wasn't
actually it doesn't. Yeah, it's already baked into the liability stuff.
Okay, good. And I think you're gonna probably find that you're gonna need a club here pretty quickly, because I do think in this, I think when you see a lot of the schools, especially in the rural areas, they've got really strong club archery programs, and I know quite a few of them that go to contests, and I think that's gonna be in your future, so you're probably not done raising money. So, thanks for what you're doing, and I think it's a wonderful, do we need to,
No,
I know we don't, I know it's a discussion item, but we don't need to approve it at any point in time, do we?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're gonna have you at the next
Okay.
meeting. I mean, we get kind of the sense that we wanna move forward with it, but we wanted to approve. We had donations to approve here, but I didn't want to approve them until we were good with going forward. And I think anytime we had a program, it should come with board approval if we change curriculum or something. So, yeah, we'll bring it next meeting and
Great.
bring the donations too.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving past the already discussed items to Senate Bill 78, which, is there really a discussion
No, I just
at
wanted to.
this point? Because yesterday it got stripped.
Oh, it did?
Oh, did it? Okay, I hadn't even noticed it.
Oh, you didn't see?
I hadn't
Oh,
yet.
yeah.
Yeah.
It got stripped from I think that one's the bill that got stripped from a Democrat requesting it, and they actually approved it in a voice vote, but then I think they're now sending it back to second
Oh,
reading,
I
so.
missed that yesterday, so, yeah.
I think that was the bill that they, because it was related to cell phones, so
Well, perfect. Unless it flares up again, I guess it's the idea.
I think
of
let's
going-
wait till the next.
Going bell to bell, right?
Yeah,
right.
and
And
I
I
don't-
don't know if you're gonna talk on it, Chad.
Yeah.
Was just so you, and I don't wanna take a lot of time either, but just so you guys were aware that there was a push to completely take cell phones use away, so kids we'd have to have a process to where, they can't access it, the whole time from bell to bell, or from bell to bell. And just in talking with our administrators, what's in place right now has been great. It's worked well, not a lot of problems, we don't wanna see anything change. So just to put that out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, but hopefully you're right.
I hope we don't have to get into, I think, was it Fort Wayne Community Schools, that they walk in the door and they bag them and
Right.
hold them and,
They
yeah,
all
I
bring
mean,
their extra phones.
yeah,
Which is what
so,
you have to do.
yeah. All right, moving on to, is there any other discussion of the board on that? Is there any discussion of the public? Okay, we're gonna move on to meeting minutes for action items. You have the meeting minutes for the previous meeting in December.
Make motion to approve.
Have a motion for approval.
Second.
Have a second. All those in favor, right hand. All right, monthly claims.
Same things, I make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, right hand. Sorry, does anybody have any discussion? Okay. Donations.
All right, we have anonymous $100 donation to the high school student council and KFK shopping, from KFK shopping, or no, NKFK, sorry, NKFK shopping. And then in memory of L. Scott Beaverstein, $425 donation to the high school honor program, then anonymous $1,000 donation to the high school FFA scholarship fund.
Those are the donations.
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Have a motion and a second. Any questions? Any questions of the public? All those in favor, right hand. Overnight or out-of-state trips.
Yeah, so Campus Life, just want the board to approve that, because it's, obviously it's a separate program, but it's our kids going on that. So it's a overnight trip for them. They've got two. One is 2/27/2028, and another one 2/28/29.
Oh, I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
All right, any discussion? Any discussion of the public? All those in favor, right hand. All right, personnel report.
Personnel report, a couple of FMLAs to approve. Jamie Feldheiser, administrator at the middle school. Jill Kaufman, bus driver at the corporation. A leave of absence, Mackenzie Morgan, teaching assistant at Lancaster. Resignations, Marcy Meckler, athletic director at the high school. Greg Mann, girls assistant soccer coach, high school. Branson Jordan, assistant boys volleyball coach, high school. Keel Nunn, boys head soccer coach, high school. Bailey Stoller, girls assistant track coach, high school. Adam Linwell, assistant girls golf coach, high school. Terminations, Patrick Gomez, bus driver for the corporation. Recommendations, Tyler Doyle, auditorium director, high school. Bailey Stoller for the girls head track coach position at the high school. Candace Tom Denwoody, assistant girls track coach at the high school. Madison Teague, creative writing club sponsor at Lancaster. Rela Drudge, assistant swim coach, middle school. Substitute teachers, Brody Boylan, Philip Geyer, Samantha Watson, and Catalina Respiskisco for the corporation. Cody Cox, volunteer boys wrestling coach, high school. Branson Jordan, volunteer boys volleyball coach, high school. Stephen Hess, volunteer boys wrestling coach, high school. Skip Edwards, boys volunteer wrestling coach, middle school. Brandon Meyer, volunteer boys wrestling coach, middle school.
Okay, I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Have a motion and a second. Any questions? Any questions of the public? All right, those in favor, right hand. Moving on to 25-26 supplemental pay for bus driver work agreement.
Yeah, I didn't know, Courtney, if you were gonna stand up and do this one, yeah.
So this was, I want to apologize to Rhonda, this was a complete over my head. Got busy with Debbie now and all of the, benefits, enrollment, all of that, and it totally slipped my mind not to get this on the board agenda months ago. So we had some board members letting bus drivers know that they thought there was a discrepancy between their pay last year and this year. So this is just a board approval for Rhonda to see that increase of the difference between what she had last year in her work agreement to this year.
Can I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I have a motion, and I have a second. Any questions? Any questions of the public? All those in favor, right hand. American Medical Staffing Agreement.
All right, do you want to talk about this quick here? Yeah.
All right, it's been how many months ago when we got our virtual school psych, and so I said at that time that our plan was to get in person. So this contract is with Lorraine, I'll call her Lorraine, and that she will be in person 2 days a week and then virtual 1 day a week. And so then the hope is that you guys would approve her, and then the next board meeting, then we would have another contracted person that would be in person, and then we would give our virtual psych her 30-day notice to start that. So this is just the 2-in-1. So.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second
I
it.
have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any questions or discussion from the public? Hearing none, all those in favor, right hand. All right, thank you. Moving on to the revised board policy 7510, facility usage.
Yeah, so Adam was here the last board meeting to explain this and go over it, and there were some questions in that. One, well, first of all, there were some errors because he had basically in the changes, Adam had eliminated groups 5 and 6, but yet in the language and some of it hadn't been. So that's been fixed. Hopefully not seeing that anywhere. And then there were other questions. I think there's $45 charge for cafeteria staff. Wasn't there, it needed to be there, so that's a change you can see in there. And then I think it was Corey had a question about, at the last meeting, about doing background checks. And so all, I think, right, yes, background checks.
Yeah, I think it was something about whoever was requesting the usage.
Right.
Something along those.
Yeah, so they have, so when they do a facilities request, first, a couple of things. One, the organization that's doing it, if it's involving like our kids or whatever, like they have their own background check stuff. But that wouldn't necessarily be a feasible thing because they may be renting it for, I don't know, like an activity, and we're not gonna be here to be, background checking everyone that attends that, right? And kids aren't involved, it's not our programming. But anyway, so that wasn't added to it. So basically the changes were just, like I said, the $45 for cafeteria staff, and then making sure all the groups were correct. Everything else was the same.
All right. I will
I'll
take,
make a motion to approve.
have a motion for approval.
I'll second.
Have a second. Any discussion? Are there any members of the public that wish to speak in regards to this? All right, hearing none. All those in favor, right hand. All right, it is approved. Moving on to the 26-27 preschool programming.
All right, so we are needing to make some changes in our day here, not daycare, but our preschool programming for next year. And so we just created a PowerPoint just to kind of go over why we need to make these changes. So on that first slide, what it talks about is the voucher. So as you guys know, when I came on board, that part of my responsibility was to get on my way for our preschool programs. And so the thought was that we were going to get all these vouchers, which would help with the funding, because as you know, preschool is not state funded. We have to provide that tuition ourselves. And so within the 24-25 school year, Lancaster had 6 vouchers, Ossian had 8, and we were receiving a weekly stipend for each voucher of $310. This year, we're down to 6 total, and this is with adding 1 additional class at Lancaster and 2 additional classes at Ossian, and the voucher amount is only $147.82 a week. So it's went by half of all of that. On the next slide, it just talks about for each voucher is a maximum amount of $6,800, and that it is stated that it's projected that there will only be 2,500 vouchers available for the entire state. So if you look at the historical enrollment, how in 2025 for the state it was 6,000, and as this year as of September of 25 actually, that it was 2,124. So once again, another area that's been heavily cut. In September also, total vouchers, CCDF, we are able to get those, and that's for through the age of 13. So our preschoolers that were 3 and 5 years old, we could get CCDFs for them, and then On My Way was for our 4-year-olds. Currently, the total amount for the state of that is $55,233, but the wait list for that is 30,000 individual families or people that are waiting for that. So, the next one's just kind of going over all of the vouchers and the wait list and all of that. This year, over 50 centers closed since the summer of 2025. I know that, I don't know if you guys heard the news that Lutheran Life, they recently closed. Anna and I today were talking about Jay County. They have, what, a million-dollar facility that they're trying to keep because of the loss of the funding. And so we sat down, so Ginger and Teresa and Mike and I sat down because we're like, okay, what are we going to do? Because as you know, we thought we were gonna get all this money, and now that we're not. And so we just had to make some difficult decisions, but what we wanted to do is that we wanted to concentrate on the 4 or 5-year-olds, and because we want to get them ready for kindergarten. So I don't know if you want me to go through it, or Ginger, if you want to go through some of it, okay.
Yeah, so we went through and, like Mindy had said, we really wanted to emphasize like those 4 or 5-year-olds, getting them ready for kindergarten and getting them into our door as early as possible. So the first thing that we did was we looked at some tuition and registration fees there. So right now, we were at $275, and we looked at some area, I think we had Megan look around at some area preschools. We were substantially below what other preschools and were charging for that monthly. So we just bumped that up to $300, to make that a flat $300 with the half day being $150. And then registration fee, $50, which was up from $30 there as well.
Which is still a lot less than like if you would go to a neighboring daycare or preschool program, so.
Yeah. And then some changes with our like classes that we're offering. So this year at Ossian, they have a 3-4 full day, a 4-5 full day, a developmental preschool, and then a half day program as well. So they have like 3.5 preschools classrooms this year. And we're looking at changing that to, like we said, emphasizing the 4 or 5-year-olds, getting them in. So having 2 full day 4 or 5-year-olds classes, and then still have that developmental preschool with an AM PM option, which would service those kids with some intense to mild needs still. That 1 4 or 5-year-old class, like you can see there, would also have some special education students in it if they have an IEP. Maybe just not to the same level of need that they wouldn't need to be in that developmental preschool. At Lancaster, we have currently this year, we have 2.5 preschool classes. And so we would reduce that half-day program. Our numbers we think we could take that half-day and combine it with one of our other 3-4-year-old classes. We can really do that with the number of students that we have there. So we didn't fill those like we had hoped. And so we would have a 4 or 5 class full day, and then another 4 or 5 class that would again service some of those students that would come in with some special needs.
And I just want to speak on, like Ginger just mentioned that she had said that we weren't able to fill those classes, and it wasn't that we weren't able to, because there were students that we actually had on the wait list, but by law, we have to have openings for special ed students, and then like, as you know, we don't know what's coming in, and so in the past, we would have had students that it would have been appropriate for them to be in that class at Lancaster. This year, however, we had a lot of students that had a lot of higher needs, and so they had to go into Patty's program at the developmental preschool. So it wasn't that we didn't have children that would have been able to go in there, it was just that by law, we wanted to make sure there was room for them, so that's why there was that, so.
And then looking at our starting and ending time for the programs, this year, we have like a 9 o'clock to 3:15 day for our preschool program. Looking at just changing that to a 9:15 to a 2:30. 9:15 really helps us have like a soft start for our preschoolers. 3, 4, and 5-year-olds entering the building with like all of the K-5 traffic is a lot in the morning for those 3, 4, 5-year-olds. And so that is really a very stimulating time. So if we can, and it also secondly helps with like Ossian's traffic flow in the morning with car riders, because those preschoolers are all car riders, most of them are car riders. Really helps with that traffic flow too, if we could just do like that 9:15 softer start to the morning. The 2:30 end time instead of 3:15, right now we really have to coordinate with our special area staff to get those kids, like the preschool teachers at prep time that our K-5 teachers have. And it's quite a lot on the schedule to get preschoolers to go into special areas for that 40-minute time is a lot. They all have to be on my way trained, so they have to have all of like the annual certifications. So by reducing it to 2:30, those special area teachers won't need to continue the on my way training. Their prep time then will will start at that 2:45 after dismissal to the end of the day. They'll be able to help with end of day dismissals. So a lot of advantages to kind of shortening that day for our preschool staff and students. I think that's it, right? Does that have any questions for us?
When do you start charging the higher rate to the
Next
family?
next year.
Next year, okay.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
is CCDF? It's vouchers, so, it's like, so state vouchers, and so that's why we were hoping that we added these classes, thinking that we were going to basically triple the amount of vouchers that we had. So they're for families that are in financial need, and so they could apply for this voucher for the state, and then, we would get, like I said, last year, it was like, what, 310, yeah, whatever that was, per week for those students, which then was going to obviously help us, right? And that we would be able to then staff the preschool, we were able to get materials like we needed and all those type of things. And that's why unfortunately a lot of the child care programs within the state are closing down because they relied 100% on these vouchers, and now they weren't getting them, so they have unfortunately had to close down, so. And we're at least fortunate enough that there's, I was at a meeting with some other district special ed administrators, and they have, their preschool programs are through Head Start. So Head Start's also struggling with this, so they were trying to figure out how were they gonna service these special education students. So we're at least very fortunate enough that we have established preschool programs so that we didn't have that worry. So that was a positive that we had, so. It's another yucky thing.
And just to be clear with the board, so what we're, the reason it's an action item is we need the preschool handbook approved. And so wanted to make sure they were here to explain the background on why that was, answer questions, before you act on the recommendation.
Because we will start opening up enrollment for
Right.
next year, so we want to make sure that the parents are aware of the changes, so.
I'm gonna make a pretty bold statement, but the public should be pretty upset about the reduction of vouchers. They should. It's just, it's sad and it's unfortunate, and it's pretty sickening what is happening with a necessary need in communities in childcare and assisting those that are financially struggling already to lose the opportunity for childcare. And I would suggest you reach out to your state representatives and senators, because they've got to fix this problem. So I'll start with a motion from the board.
I'll make a motion.
I'll start with a motion, sorry.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion or questions of the board? Are there any members of the public that wish to speak in regards to the modified changes of the handbook? All right, hearing none, I'll have a motion for approval. All those in favor, right hand. Thank you. Revised board meeting schedule locations for January 27th and February 24th.
Yes, we've talked about this a little bit. I won't spend a ton of time, but just having town hall meetings, I think the last, like we had talked about this, like having, because this forum is just a little bit different. People make statements, but that's kind of it. And the boards are really not that back and forth. And so I want to try it. So after our meeting on January 27th and February 24th, at the conclusion of the meeting, and I'm going to facilitate it, just open it up to anyone in the public that wants to come. It can be parents, it can be community members, it can be anybody, and come and just, the topics will be what they choose to talk about. And if they have questions about school district or direction we're going or things they think we ought to do or whatever it might be, we'll just have a honest exchange of conversation there during that. So, so the reason being, I have no idea, right, what the participation is going to be. But didn't want us to be crowded, so we're going to try to see what it looks like to do it at the middle school cafetorium, and so people can sit around tables and be comfortable and whatever, and kind of see how that goes. So just asking you, since it changes the
Oh,
location.
The only issue or only potential issue would be if there's athletic events.
Yeah, and there's some, there isn't on the 27th, that should conflict, but the 24th, Jamie and I were talking, there is I don't know, it's wrestling or something that was going on that, we'll see. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I might also, the only way I look at that too is that might draw people in that, oh, I didn't know what's going on. Maybe they come in and talk a little bit. I don't know. So we'll see. If it ends up not working like that, then we'll do something different here.
Is that something maybe we could put something in the paper? I know there are a large number of people who say they aren't on social media,
Yeah.
so they don't know when these things happen, but if that's something that we advertise
Yep,
outside of.
absolutely.
And are we able to give a ballpark start time? Because these meetings vary.
I mean, this was a
in
long
duration.
meeting. Generally, we don't do this, right? So I would say ballpark, transparency, right? It all comes at a cost. So I would say, I wouldn't expect, 6:30, 6:15 to 6:30 probably. I mean, so one of the things is the 24th, just because you asked it, so that's also the 24th, our principals are gonna be, and Mindy actually is gonna give an overview. We've been waiting on special education to do this. So she's gonna talk about special education, and principals are gonna talk about updates on progress towards goals. We've talked about, though, that we're not gonna give the end-all be-all in those presentations. We're looking at 10 minutes, 15 minutes, just to update the board where we're at. So that is happening at that meeting, so it may be, I don't know.
Yeah.
Tracy?
Well, I'm just saying, it might lose an audience if we're not
6:15.
showing up.
I get it. Hey, I get it. So, but-
Okay, have a recommendation to modify the locations of the meetings on the 27th and the 24th.
I will make a motion.
Second.
Have a motion and a second for approval. Any additional questions or discussion? Board, any members of the public that wish to speak? All right, hearing none, all those in favor, right hand. All right.
Okay, last agenda item. So Norwell staff championship signs, we talked last time about the board just formally approving this. And so there are some additional steps I will tell you that we have. So maybe just tell them that real quick, the additional steps that we worked with Roger on that we got to do yet.
Yeah, so Roger brought the signs in to get approved. There's 4 of them that can go to each school. We don't have a location in Ossian yet. So I checked with the Wells County Highway Department on where they need to be, how far off the road, stuff like that. They ended up sending me to NDOT to get their approval on it. And as long as we were outside of their right of way and the signs don't cause a distraction at intersections. That's what they told us. So then we had to go to the Area Plan Commission to get approval because the Area Plan Commission has a rule regulation that you can only have 1 sign per property. So we filed, well, I haven't yet, but I got paperwork to file for the Area Plan Commission to get variance that we can have 4 signs plus our current signs on our properties. That's not until February 24th. But the plan would be to, at Norwell, put them out front of the pine trees, just to the east of our maintenance building. And then at Lancaster, between the water tower and the house, just to the north of that house. When we were looking at that, we don't own that property. We sold that to Bluffton, traded it to Bluffton, City of Bluffton. So they are writing a easement portion through their lawyers, a 15-foot by 50-foot, whatever that area is, I don't know, that we would be able to put our signs there and that we have rights to that property at that whole time. So that's where we're at with that. Once the Area Plan Commission hopefully approves that, then we'll start installing them in March, April time.
But we did want the board to approve it and to do it, so.
I make a motion to approve.
I'll
But that's,
second.
we're not done yet. I still got another 15 minutes.
Okay, we have a motion
You're done.
for, and a second for approval. Have a motion and a second for approval. Are there any other discussion or questions of the board?
You'll just let us know where they go in Ossian, right? Yeah, once you know. So we can
Okay.
find them.
Are there any members of the public that wish to speak in regards to this agenda item? Going once, going twice, hearing none. All those in favor, right hand. All right, now we are going to open up for hopefully very limited public comment. If you have any topics that you would like to bring to the board, You're welcome to approach the podium. We're going to cut you to 3 minutes. And if you would like to come up, please state your name and your address. And you're welcome to then address the board for 3 minutes. 2, 1. All right. Upcoming calendar events. January 27th is the Community Town Hall. February 5th, 12th, 19th. There'll be some parent coffee chats with the superintendent. Would encourage, again, if you would like to stop in the morning, sit down, have a chat, good, bad, doesn't matter. Love to hear from parents and people to share any concerns or what's going well or what you'd like to see going on with the district. And then February 24th, again, another community hall town forum following the board meeting. And this is where
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
we have a motion to adjourn.